Alright, today we're going to be jumping back into the Bitcoin price action along with the altcoin market and some other traditional finance indicators to see what we can expect to happen within the following days and weeks to come. So let's jump into Bitcoin real quick. We're on the 1 hour time frame and you can see we have bounced off the lows sitting at 66,500-ish. We are testing, these previous highs over here, as well as we do have a 1 hour bearish divergence on the chart, right? If you look at your RSI down here, you have higher highs on price, whereas you have lower highs on the relative strength index. That's a bearish indicator, right? But do I expect that to play out? Absolutely not. And the reason for that is we have consistently been having these 1 hour bearish divergences, and they have all been fake outs, right? You can see here previously we had an exaggerated bearish divergence, traded sideways, broke through. Back here again, we had another 1 hour bearish divergence on the RSI, right? Traded sideways and then broke up, breaking this bearish divergence on the RSI. So as you can see, if history were to repeat here locally, what would make a whole lot of sense to happen would be that Bitcoin trades kind of sideways and down until it finds support on this value area high, right? Because we haven't really tested the value area high yet. So I would not be surprised if we could test that. Maybe we do wick down real quick, right, to take out longs from this area here. But closing above that value area high, and then once you get a back test of this entire range here, that would be a confirmation of us leaving the range, and you would see us vector up and finally squeeze all those shorts, potentially sending us hunting for those shorts all the way at the highs, up at around 74K. And that's where I could see, a more considerable pullback happening. Not anything that would break these lows. I do see a case where we go ahead and tap the highs, liquidate all those shorts, and then bring it all the way back down to the daily EMA before continuing the uptrend to $100,000 plus Bitcoin, which I do believe we are going to hit this cycle, which has not been my thesis all along, right? If you've been watching this channel for a while, I've slowly been shifting my price targets for Bitcoin higher. I used to think, $80,000, $85,000 has always been my target for the Bitcoin high, right? That's where I was thinking we were going to top out this cycle, break all-time highs, get max euphoria, and then distribute just above all-time highs while everybody else calls for 100K plus. I now think that $80,000 to $85,000 will probably not be our high. I'm not saying it's not possible to happen. I actually think it's a very probable thing to happen, right? There's a good chance that $80,000 to $85,000 is still the high for Bitcoin. I do see the case for $200,000 to $300,000 Bitcoin if we were to fractal something like 2017 with a blow-off top. The reasoning for this is the Fed was supposed to cut already, right? They were supposed to cut in May. Then they were supposed to cut in June. Now they're not talking about cuts till early as September, probably more likely December or even possibly 2025. Your Fed cut normally marks the top of the market. Even if they were to front run that by a couple months, right? Let's say it comes to September and they say, hey, we're not going to be cutting in September, but they signal for sure that they will be for December. I think the markets could easily start front running that as soon as that meeting ends, right? So we could see distribution from September, October, before the real collapse and entering of the bear market happens around a month before the Fed meeting in November. And that would also align perfectly with the whole theory on an election cycle being bullish for the markets, because those in power will try to keep the public's perception and euphoria levels high during an election, so they have a higher chance of keeping whoever's in office at that time in office. Right, so the fall being the top, right, where max euphoria is in the markets and you have distribution during the elections makes a whole lot of sense. Not only that, but the charts are telling me the same thing, right? Because you haven't had an altcoin season yet. Yes, you did have a little bit of a meme coin season at these highs, right? Dog with fat, $4.5 billion market cap. That was a big red flag. But you didn't see WIF hit $40 billion market cap, right? You haven't seen altcoins hit hundreds of billions of dollars of market cap. There just isn't that type of inflow into crypto right now. In general, Bitcoin has been outperforming the market, which obviously you could make the argument that now that there's ETFs, retail is more excited to buy Bitcoin as well as it's more accessible to them. So that's why Bitcoin is going up more during a phase where there should be more euphoria into altcoins. But I think at the end of the day, even with ETFs, altcoins still should be outperforming Bitcoin no matter what towards the top of the market. So I think this last drop on Total 3 was just to shake out all those weekends, right? Those new buyers that jumped in on the break of all-time highs are now panicked because their positions are down 30-40%, and it's just designed to shake them out accumulate more altcoins for the actual alt season that is still ahead of us. Right, and if the bull was to continue through the summer into, potentially even fall, right, for that election season, there's a case to be made that Bitcoin has time to reach hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not only that, but retail sentiment right now does not expect Bitcoin to go over $250,000, right? I've been doing a little bit of research, finding, polls and whatnot to get a general market sentiment of what people think Bitcoin is going to be going to this year. Most people are either saying the top is already in, or we're going to $100,000 to $150,000. So the fact that the general consensus is now $100,000 to $150,000, my price targets being around $100,000 don't really make as much sense anymore, right? There's still that $80,000 to $85,000, which is a probability, but I think if we are able to get through that, I believe it's because there's more money on the sidelines than people are anticipating, and the fact that there are actual nation states, this is confirmed, that buy Bitcoin, right? There are a lot of wealthy individuals that have decided to put their money into Bitcoin because they believe it's a better store of value than something like the US dollar, their own currency, or gold and silver because it's just more liquid. So if you do have a hierarchy that is truly holding Bitcoin as a store of value and they continue to buy, the US dollar continues to get devalued, right? There are decisions that the United States are making right now that may entice other countries to go ahead and get out of the US dollar and buy other assets. And what are they going to buy? Well, they're going to put that into capital markets and Bitcoin, right? So you'll see stock markets go up because they're putting it into capital markets, which will inherently make Bitcoin go up. But not only that, they will probably also just be buying Bitcoin because it's another store of value, just like gold, right? If people are flocking from the US dollar, that is your case for Bitcoin going to $300,000 this cycle. But my new thesis is pretty 50-50. I think we're either going to front run $100,000, maybe swing failed a couple times, but truly have distribution start around $80,000, $85,000. Or we potentially do have this massive blow off top that is $200,000 to $300,000. I now think there's a solid chance, like 50% chance, we do see $200,000 Bitcoin. Not in 2025, but this year. But of course, that's all just theoretical guessing based on market sentiment and macro events going on in the economy. There is nothing definitive about price targets and where we could be heading for Bitcoin other than when price actually reacts, right? We have to wait for that time to come. We have to wait to see what Bitcoin does. And once I'm able to look at the price action, then I can kind of tell you if I think that the top is in or if we are going to continue going up. Right, such as right now. Do I think the top is in at $74,000? Absolutely not, and that's because we have just reclaimed this daily EMA, backtested it as support. We are now looking to march up for all-time highs. Now, of course, coming up, sweeping the highs, then coming back down, testing the daily EMA a couple more times before finally rocketing off to the moon is definitely likely, so I do expect a little bit more sideways movement in here, but I do expect higher highs from here on out. I do think altcoins are going to start going parabolic, right? You're going to see certain alts start doing double-digit percentages on the day. Obviously, that's not going to be every altcoin right away. They all kind of go at different times, and that's why rotational plays are a big thing in crypto. So the way I tend to rotate my altcoins is whenever I get a 10 or 20x within the past month on a coin, you go, that's probably the top or at least close to the top. And I can go put it into this other asset that hasn't really ran yet, that still has great utility and has a better potential to do a 10 or 20x going forward. And that's kind of how I'll rotate my altcoins. Speaking of altcoins, let's go ahead and jump into that because I think I've covered Bitcoin well enough for today. So jumping over here to Total 3, right? The conglomerate of altcoins market caps, right? This is kind of generally what your altcoins are doing. And as you know, I said I did not want this wick to break or else that was probably the end of the bull market. Even if we were going to go make another high on Bitcoin, if this had broken, I would have been worried, but we held it. And that signals to me the bull market is still valid. We still are probably just in accumulation for altcoins. The altcoin season has not even started yet, right? We held the 4-hour bull div perfectly into the golden pocket. We are now rallying up, about to fill this vector. And if you know anything about vectors, when you film, it'll probably be quick. So I do expect alts to go kind of parabolic here locally. And then once we do get up into these higher prices, I do think just like Bitcoin, we could go ahead and test this daily EMA a couple more times before actually sending off for the proper altcoin season. So that's what I'm seeing there on total 3, right? Looks very, very bullish. The lows were held great. Everything is set up for continuation upwards in the altcoin market. So then let's go ahead and jump into some specific altcoins. I did post these two in my Discord the other day, so I thought we'd go ahead and cover them. This is Caspa here. It made kind of two patterns, and this is a nice example of how patterns are very deceiving, but Caspa does love to follow patterns. So even though it was used to trap shorts, it still respected the patterns actually very, very well. So as we can see here on a 1 hour time frame, you had this just symmetrical triangle in the chart, right? Retail would think if it broke up, that's bullish. If it broke down, that's bearish. Well, what happened? We broke down, fake out, went ahead, tested top trend, bearish retest. Oh no, we're going to collapse from here. Absolutely not. Nope, this was just designed to trap shorts right here. We went ahead, then finally broke out through it. Then went ahead, bullishly backtested the trend, and now we are finally off and away, going pretty vertical here on Caspa. So Caspa looking really, really good. Another one I posted in the Discord was Metis. We are backtesting the weekly EMA, and I believe this is actually the first time Metis has ever backtested its weekly EMA, so extremely bullish on this coin. This is one that came out late in the last bull, so it didn't really have time to build structure back then. Now it is finally building a proper super cycle uptrend, backtesting the weekly EMA. And I do think Metis will be one of the main performers this bull run because it has so much utility and the layer 2 narrative with the Ethereum ETF that's probably going to also be coming out. So that's Metis there. Looks really, really good. Now let's go ahead. Let's jump out of altcoins. I wanted to look at some stuff I looked at in my last video, which would be the DXY gold and S&P. We can see over here on the dollar currency index, we are still around the same price point, just kind of seeing if we are going to reject off this level. It does look more and more like it wants to break down from these EMAs, so I do expect the dollar to kind of collapse here, which would be real bullish for Bitcoin and markets in general. Now going over to gold. Gold's another one I said was probably topped in my last video, and it turns out it was. It went ahead, broke down from your EMAs. On the daily time frame, you can see absolute falling knife, and I do expect gold to be topped for some time. Do I expect it to just plummet to the ground? No, it'll probably just trade sideways, and that is what you want for a continuation in risk on assets. So that's all looking really good. And then lastly, I wanted to go ahead and check out the S&P 500. I was saying this was probably going to be a bottom right on the 4 hour. We had kind of this double bottom playing out here, and I was looking for that to start marching up. We have gotten the bounce out of the range, and I do think the S&P is going to continue upwards and onwards and leaving everyone in disbelief because a lot of people are calling for the markets to have been topped. They're thinking, oh, the recession has started, we're finally going down, and while I would have agreed with them if the Fed had already cut, because of what I went over at the beginning of this video, I do think the S&P has room for continuation to the upside, potentially even going on a parabola up to around $6,000 before it is finally topped and you do see the real recession begin. As you can see, I'm real bullish on the markets with everything I'm seeing, and I'll continue to update you guys on any price action going on in the charts. So make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.